What's going on, guys? Carter here. Got another video for you. We are talking about perfectly centering knives on a camera. No, we're talking about Strider knives. Are they worth the money? Man, I've talked about this before in different ways. I've mentioned it in different videos. And I want to talk about it again. It's a complicated thing. And in my mind, it goes beyond just like knives themselves and things like that. So I want to answer that question. But first off, if you're looking for a 100% concrete, definitive answer at the end of this video, you're probably not going to get it. What you're going to get is a multifaceted approach where I'm going to try to address different ways of looking at that question and giving an answer for each. And maybe the goal too is to give a little insight in other areas. I'm going to do some allegories. I think that's the right word. Lots of fun stuff. But first, here is 3 of my arguably most impressive Striders, or at least I think so in my collection. This one's new. This is the Magma Nightmare Grind SMF Double Gunner Grip. I sold my XL, and I did feel kind of sad about it, so I justify that by getting this instead. This is much more manageable size-wise. And one thing I noticed, going on a tangent, sorry guys, this is an XL as well, but for some reason, because this is the flat titanium scales, it doesn't seem as, I don't know, maybe I'm just trying to justify feeling bad about selling my XL. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I did. So here we are. I did get this though, and I absolutely love this guy. It's a lot more wieldy. It's got the notch on it. I like this notch. Some people don't. I've already gotten the comment about gas station knife when I posted it, so that's always a plus. And this one is my only Batwing, and it's really, really cool. SNG, it's my only custom SNG I've ever owned, and it has a PBD blade with the Magma, lots of stuff going on, beautiful. Anyways, so question, are Striders worth the money? The answer to that is complicated, right? It depends on your definition of worth the money. And so to answer, or to start with that, let's take a look at what's happened in society. Maybe it's America, I don't know. We are really trying to suck the humanity and the nuance out of everything, and we're almost too logical for our own good, if that makes sense. Like we're really trying to pull everything out of these things, right? We have this goal to say, well, when reviewing anything, we want to be as objective as possible and just pull everything out of it. Perfect example, food reviews. This popped in my head. Chick-fil-A, right? Somebody saying, Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich versus Popeye's chicken sandwich versus whatever, right? What do? They get the sandwich, they isolate the sandwich away from everything else, and they just compare the thing in front of them. And you may be saying, well, of course, what else would you do? But really, Chick-fil-A is more than just the sandwich, right? The quality of the sandwich. That's a big component. But you also have order experience, how quickly they operate, how friendly they are, how clean they are, what the overall experience is. And in my mind, when I go to Chick-fil-A, that's a big part of why I choose it. I'm not a huge Chick-fil-A guy. It's what popped in my head because I went there the other day. That's part of why I like it, because I know it's going to be clean. I know it's going to be consistent. I know people are going to be friendly. It's a big part of it. But for some reason, when we review the food, we want to say, no, it's just the food. What does that have to do with Strider knives? Well, it's a similar type thing. If you take a Strider knife and you just say object compared to object, right? This object compared to this object. Yeah, you're going to say, no, Strider knives are not worth it, right? Maybe these aren't the best examples because I'm doing customs. Yeah, I picked them because they were the coolest looking ones, but really I probably shouldn't be doing comparisons with customs because customs are an entirely different thing, you know, handmade, limited, blah, blah, blah. But oh well, I started. I'm not doing this again. You would say, no, this is objectively, for the money, a better knife-like object than, let's say, if this was a normal SNG, and you'd say it's not worth the money. But what I would say, though, is, yeah, if you're comparing object to object, you'll probably say it's not worth the money. And I'm not saying Striders are any slouch. I think there's, and I've mentioned this before, some of these things that we're so caught up on, like lock stick, and some of these things are like, well, I think we're kind of parroting these things based on the community we've created, right? Like we've just convinced ourselves that certain things are bad and they mean bad quality. And when you really think about it, it's like, how much validity is really there? But anyways, I digress, which I always do. Object to object, you're going to say, no, it's not worth it. But what I see when I look at this, I see warranty. And I know I've parroted that a lot, but it's a big deal for those that care about it. For those that don't care about it, they don't, which is fine. If you want to say, Emerson 2, which I would say way better warranty, or at least more practical warranty, better subjective, more practical warranty. Some people would say, well, I don't really care because I never use warranties. And then, yeah, maybe Emerson knives aren't really for you then. But you can't really say they're trash because they're overpriced. Part of that price is paying for that warranty. And if you don't need that, then just admit, yeah, I don't need all the services that Emerson provides. Therefore, for me, it's not worth the money. But people tend to paint this broad brush and say, well, no, it's trash. They're too expensive for what they are. And that's because they're just looking at the object in front of them. So warranty, it's a big deal. Does Spyderco have a warranty? Yeah. I mean, if you get one that's defective, it has an issue, yes. But if you use this thing for years and the lock starts failing, I mean, the idea is like, no, you just buy a new one, right? They're not going to fix it. They're not going to replace the blade. They're not going to replace the lock bar. They're not going to do a lot of these things. Now, Spyderco's not the best example either because they're pretty dang good. If you lose some screws, they'll probably send you screws. They're not going to be a-holes and make you send in the knife or pay for screws. But a lot of companies don't, especially when you're looking at like this Arcane Design Abyss, and I'm somewhat speaking out of school here. I don't have a full comprehensive view of what their warranty is, but I would suspect it's pretty nothing, right? If you buy the knife direct and it has issues out of the box, I'm sure they will take care of you and get you a replacement. But I don't think the owner has boxes of spare parts. And I know the owner can't take a knife and fix it and do certain things. If you need a blade replacement, you're probably out of luck because these are made in China and they ship units and that's it. Nobody is making these blades in-house where they can just grab another one for you and throw it on there, even for a fee. It doesn't work that way. It's like a vacuum cleaner, right? Like if you open a vacuum cleaner and it's busted, you take it back to the store. But in a year from now, if parts wear out, things are designed now to just be discarded for the most part. And it's a similar type thing with a lot of these import knives. Not all of them. Some are a little better than others. I'm sure there are some of these companies that do have spare parts available. At least they can send you. But other than that, the idea is that kind of, you buy it. It's yours, and if you break it or if there's an issue from use, that's your problem, and you just got to get another one, discard it, or find somebody else to fix it, right? They're not really going to take care of it. Strider and Emerson isn't like that. Strider and Emerson, warranty goes beyond just issues out of the box or out of the baggie. You can get taken care of no matter what the problem is. No matter what problem you have, once again, not the best example being a custom, rules are a little bit different, but saying this is a production SNG, no matter the problem you come across, they will fix it. Now, it could be you have to pay for a reblade because you did something stupid and snapped it in half. You used it how you shouldn't have. It could be that the lock bar wears out and they give you a whole new lock side. But you'll get taken care of. You will not be told, sorry, you're out of luck. You just got to get a new one, right? There's nothing I can do. I don't have another blade around because they make these blades here. They make them. They're not ordering them from China and waiting 5 months to get a new batch in. They make them so you can get taken care of. Now, all I'm saying, it's fine if you don't care about that. Lots of people do not use their knives to a point where they need a warranty aside from a defect. Most people, I would say, don't. So that's fine for you to say, well, I don't care about that, so I'm not going to pay for that. That's fine. Just admit that's what you're saying. Don't try to make it sound like it's not worth the money because an SNG costs $500 and you can get this for a couple hundred, or you could get a something obscene actually for about the same price. That's not the best example. Those are expensive. You can get this for $350 and it has all the same-ish type qualities, but it's cheaper. But you're paying for other things. So that's kind of a clear-cut one. Like, the warranty does have value. It may or may not matter to you, but it does have value. End of story. It really does. But the other thing, the intangible one, and the main point of this story is when you buy a Strider, like you're also buying, I don't know, how do I want to word this? You're buying an entryway into the community, into the culture, into the friendship, into the history, right? And that's subjective, if that has any value or doesn't have value to you, right? The Strider community is fun. You know, it's got its quirks, but it's fun. And it's got a lot of history. There's a lot there. There's a lot of fun stuff that happens because these knives have been around so long. I have been into Striders for a long time, and of course I've faded in and out of it. But I constantly see knives that I never knew existed. New, old, all across the board. Had no idea. Collaborations that I didn't know had happened. Variations I didn't know had happened. Generations of like old school S&Gs that I didn't know existed. Because they have that history, and it's fun and it's exciting, and it's a cool part of the hobby to plug into something like that, to learn about it, to understand it. You may not love every aspect of it, but it still adds like cool dimension to the hobby. You know, something like this, which, hey, I really like this knife. I'm going to do a whole dedicated video on it, but it's not the same here, right? It's a new company. It's been out a few years. It takes them a really long time to produce knives because they're coming from China. So they have to months and months between when they order batches. They're not able to pivot quickly. They're not able to do cool, fun little one-offs. Everything has to be kind of large batch. Everything has to be fairly appealing to the masses, right? That's another big difference. This is kind of getting off subject, but that's what I do. Striders are able to do little one-off things, little pivot things. They're able to do little custom runs, right? They got shows coming up, and they can say, you know what? How about we do a run of S&Gs with purple blades? Why not? So they do that, and they do like 50 knives with purple blades, or whatever the example is. And then now there's that. And if you like purple blades, cool, you can get it. If not, you can't. But if you do get one, it's always kind of interesting to show it years later. And they're like, where'd that come from? You don't get that with Chinese made knives because everything has to be done in bulk, right? So the designer has to make variants. They have to decide what those are going to be. They have to be fairly confident that most people are going to like said variant. They can't do anything too crazy because they have to do these hundreds and hundreds at a time in order to justify the cost and to get in line at these OEMs in China. And I've touched on this on my China-made video. How sustainable is this model? Is it going to change? And what you lose with this, right? So yes, you get an affordable, cool looking knife with all the features, full frame lock for a fraction of what you would pay for a Strider with more of the stuff, you know, the bearings and the lock bar insert. But what you lose is some of the fun, some of the excitement, some of the interesting pieces, right? Because like this particular knife, I think there was 3 variants that you could get. And these 3 variants were picked like a year before these hit the shelves, you know, by the time they get produced. And they had to do variants that are very milk toast. You know, I love the design. It's got a lot of flair and aggressiveness to it, and I really like it. Not the best example because I've actually customized this. So this is not something you can actually get direct from Arcane Design. I'll talk about this in the dedicated video. But my point is, he had to choose standard variants, you know, black blade, you know, murdered out version, black blade with bronze handle, you know, kind of like what everybody would say, yeah, that looks pretty good. You know, some people will prefer satin blade and not black blade, but they're all very middle of the road kind of versions of the knife. They all have to be picked well in advance. And then you have to hope that by the time these things get made and shipped, people still want them. And so you're kind of with these knives, it's very kind of, I hate to say it, corporate-ish, right? You have to pick variants that are going to be appealing to most people. You can't get too crazy and you can't move too quick. You can't say we've got a show coming up, so we're going to do a really cool variation. It takes way too long to get this thing in motion. Whereas local US companies like this, they can do fun, crazy stuff. They can do weird little variants. They can do collaborations where they only do 50 versions of a whole knife. Strider does that all the time. Prometheus Design Works, they'll do little collaborations with them where they do pretty wild lasering on the knives. And it happens fast. You know, from when they decide to do the collab, they come up with the design, they can move quickly because it's all done in the States, and they can pluck however many knives off the factory floor. It's not really a factory, but off the shop floor. And they can send those off for whatever special kind of finish or treatment or whatever it is they want to do. So you're kind of paying for that. And like I said, it's fine to say I don't care about that. I just want a well-made knife for the least amount of money possible. That's fine. I just don't want, it only bugs me when people make it sound like, objectively, Striders aren't worth the money because you can get this cheaper and it has more features. And it's not that simple. It's fine to say what you're paying for, I don't care about. That's fine. Just like when you buy a car and you're like, yeah, I don't want to pay for the leather. I don't want to pay for the bigger navigation screen. I don't want to pay for those things. It doesn't matter to me. You don't say, like a Dodge Ram Lariat isn't worth the money because I don't care about the extra stuff you get. I don't care about the tow package. I don't care about all these things. Therefore, it's overpriced. Nobody would really say that. What they would say is, it's not worth it to me. I don't want to pay for that tier because those things aren't worth it to me. And that's how I feel with this. You can say, I don't want to pay for a Strider because the things that extra money goes towards, I don't care about or I don't need. That's fine. But to say it's just not worth the money because you can get this instead, that's not fair. It's not accurate. These are not, well, obviously they're not the same custom, but if this wasn't a custom, it wouldn't be an equal apples to apples comparison, right? These are great. I love this knife, but it just doesn't have, a lot of people talk about the heart, the soul, and that's really what I'm trying to explain, like what that means, because I'm a type of person, I'm a hobbyist first and foremost with knives, right? User second. And I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are that way and they just don't admit it. But I'm a hobbyist first. And so I like the community. I like the groups. I like the activity. I like that the Strider groups on Facebook have tons of activity, questions, pictures, jokes, jabs, giving each other shit. I like all of that. You don't have that here. It doesn't have that kind of following. There is a Facebook group, not a lot of activity, not a lot of things going on. And it doesn't have that legacy brand, right? Great knife. It's cool. I'm glad I have it in the collection, especially since I've customized it, but it just doesn't have this. Now, once again, dead horse. It's fine for you to say, I don't care about all that stuff. That's great. Just admit that's what you're saying, because that's part of what you're paying for with this. You're paying that entry into that world. If you don't want to go into that world, that's fine. Just don't say objectively Striders aren't worth the money because you can get something cheaper with whatever other features. This is a cool knife. I like the design. You get a lot for the money. But to compare this to like a Strider and say Striders aren't worth the money because you can get an EMP Nimble for $300 or whatever they go for. It's like, yeah, you could look at this and say, this isn't worth S&G money. But you're missing out on a lot of intangibles when you get something like this. As a knife, this is great, well designed, well made. But to compare it to like a Strider and everything that comes with the Strider, both warranty, community, culture, history, all that stuff, it's just not a fair comparison. That's really what I'm trying to say. So if you've lasted this long, I appreciate you guys hanging out, having this discussion. Let me know what your thoughts are. I get fanboy for sure, and I have biases, but at the same time, like I call them as I see them. I know the Strider community can be downright toxic, and I know the Strider community can cover up blatant quality control issues. I'm not saying it's perfect. Striders have things that I've gotten Striders direct where I've been like, this should not have left the company. And I know it did leave the company because they know that people will be apologetic for it. And they'll just say, it's a knife, not a purse, that kind of thing. And to a certain degree, I appreciate that mentality on a lot of things, but you can definitely push it too far. So not without its faults. Don't get me wrong. I try my best to, I'll poke fun at myself. I'll poke fun at things that I've invested lots of money in, but I still like them. So anyways, that's a little side tangent there. Let me know what you think down below on Striders specifically, right? Am I making any sense in what I'm trying to convey here? I know I can ramble and kind of do all that stuff, but there's just something extra with some of these knife companies. And some people don't care about it. I get it. But I do. And so to me, it is worth it. All right, guys, I'm out of here. See you later.